Karen's laugh was a chainsaw ripping through the quiet of my ranch. She stood there, hands on her hips, her floral dress straining against her bulk, smirking like she'd just won the lottery by selling my Lake Me Lakido, her sleazy boyfriend. For 30 years, that lake had been the heart of my family's ranch. It wasn't just water. It was where my kids learned to fish, where my late wife and I watched sunsets, where the town gathered for barbecues. But Karen, the self-appointed queen of our small community, decided it was hers to sell. She'd bullied her way onto the county board, waving her connections like a loaded gun, and somehow convinced them to transfer the deed to her boyfriend, Mitch, a real estate shark with a grin greasier than a used car lot. The plan: turn our lake into a private resort for their rich friends. The Clubhouse, where kids played and old folks swapped stories, was already slated for demolition. I found out by accident. A neighbor's kid, barely 16, came running to my porch, out of breath, clutching a crumpled flyer. "They're gonna bulldoze the clubhouse. Mr. Harlan," he gasped. The flyer had Karen's name plastered all over it, boasting about her vision for a luxury retreat. I felt my blood boil. This wasn't just theft. It was a betrayal of everything our town stood for. I confronted her the next day at the lake. Karen was there, barking orders at a crew unloading construction equipment. Mitch lounged nearby, sipping something neon from a plastic cup, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder like he owned the place. The air stank of diesel and Karen's cheap perfume. "Karen, what the hell is this?" I waved the flyer in her face. "You sold my lake." She didn't even flinch. "Oh, Harlan, grow up," she sneered, her voice dripping with condescension. "This place is a dump. I'm doing you a favor. Mitch's investors will make it worth something." She gestured at the lake like it was a vacant lot, not a piece of my soul. "You had no right," I said, my voice shaking. "That land's been in my family for generations." "Rights." She laughed, her chins wobbling. "I've got the county's signature." "Honey, you've got nothing." Mitch chuckled behind her, and I swear I saw red. I wasn't alone in my fury. The town was buzzing with outrage. Karen had always been a thorn in our side, demanding special treatment at the diner, cutting in line at the market, berating anyone who dared cross her, but this was a new low. She'd crossed a line, and people were done. At the town hall meeting that night, the room was packed. Farmers, shopkeepers, even the high school principal showed up, their faces tight with anger. Karen strutted in late, Mitch trailing her like a lapdog, and the room went silent. "You can't just steal our lake," shouted Mrs. Delaney, the librarian, her voice trembling. "That's where my grandkids swim." Karen rolled her eyes. "It's called progress. People. You'll thank me when your property values soar." The crowd erupted, shouting her down, but she just stood there, smug as ever, like she was untouchable. I wasn't about to let her win. I'd spent years as a small-town lawyer before retiring to the ranch, and I knew a thing or two about fighting dirty deals. I stayed up all night, digging through county records, calling in favors from old colleagues. By dawn, I'd found it, the loophole Karen hadn't noticed. The lake's deed transfer required a public vote, not just a board signature. She'd bribed or bullied her way past that step, but it was illegal. I had her. The next morning, I filed an emergency injunction with the county court. Karen's construction crew was halted before they could touch the clubhouse. She was livid, storming into my office with Mitch in tow, her face redder than a barn fire. You think you can stop me? Harlan, she screamed, jabbing a manicured finger at me. I'll bury you in legal fees. Try me, I said, leaning back in my chair. I've already frozen your accounts. Her jaw dropped. You what? I smiled for the first time in days. Your bank accounts. Karen. The ones you used to funnel money to Mitch's shell company for this deal. I tipped off the state auditor. They're looking into fraud now. It was true. I'd found evidence of her shady, sloppy, arrogant moves she thought no one would notice. The auditor was thrilled to take a closer look. Mitch went pale. But Karen just sputtered. You're bluffing. Am I? I slid a copy of the audit request across my desk. And while you're at it, the sheriff's on his way to seize that clubhouse you were so eager to tear down. It's still public property. The fallout was swift. The town rallied behind me, flooding the courthouse with petitions to void the sale. Karen's investors pulled out when they heard about the fraud investigation. Mitch, predictably, ditched her, vanishing with whatever cash he could grab. By the end of the week, Karen was alone, her empire of bluster crumbling. The lake was safe, the clubhouse untouched, and the town celebrated with a barbecue by the water, the kind Karen had always gate-crashed, but was now too humiliated to attend. But I wasn't done. Karen had hurt too many people, and I wanted her to feel the sting. I pushed for a public hearing, where every neighbor she'd ever insulted got to speak. Mrs. Delaney told how Karen had mocked her grandkids for swimming in her lake. The diner owner recounted Karen's tantrums over slow service. Even the mailman chimed in, describing how she'd screamed at him for delivering her packages late. Karen sat there, shrinking under the weight of her own reputation, her smugness gone. The judge ruled in our favor. The deed was voided, and Karen was ordered to pay restitution for the legal costs. Her accounts, already frozen, were drained to cover it. She tried to play the victim, sobbing about small-town grudges. But no one bought it. She'd built her own cage, one snide remark at a time. As the sun set over the lake that evening, I stood by the clubhouse, watching kids splash in the water. Mrs. Delaney brought me a slice of her famous peach pie, and we laughed about how Karen's luxury resort was now just a bad memory. The lake was ours again, not because of me, but because of everyone who'd stood up to her. It wasn't just about land. It was about community, about fighting for what's right, about proving that no one, not even a bully like Karini's, above accountability. Karen moved away a month later. Her house sold to cover her debts. Rumor has it she's living in a cramped apartment somewhere, still complaining about her neighbors. I don't wish her ill, but I don't miss her either. The lake sparkles now, free of her shadow, and every ripple feels like a victory.